The snow had started falling just before sunset. Soft flakes, drifting past the tall windows, settling quietly on the edges of the city. Inside the old community hall, everything felt warm. There were garlands draped along the wooden beams, white lights glowing gently, and in the corner stood a tall Christmas tree, decorated in red and gold. The scent of pine and cinnamon lingered in the air. Near the fireplace sat an upright piano. Its wood was worn smooth from decades of hands, some young, some trembling with age. And at that piano, on a small bench that was just a little too big for her, sat a little girl in a red dress. Her name was Lily Carter. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old. Blonde hair pulled into a small ponytail, white tights, shiny black shoes that barely touched the floor. Her fingers were tiny, but they rested on the keys with surprising confidence. Standing a few feet behind her was a tall man in a dark tailored suit. His hair was neatly combed, his posture straight, his jaw set in the way of someone who had spent many years learning not to show too much. His name was Daniel Whitmore. At 58 years old, Daniel was the CEO of a large manufacturing company in the city. People described him as disciplined, efficient, private. They did not describe him as lonely, but he was. That evening had been meant to be a simple holiday charity event, a gathering for employees and their families, applause, handshakes, polite smiles. Daniel had attended because that was expected of him. He had not expected to feel anything. The room quieted as Lily adjusted her position on the bench. She looked back over her shoulder for a moment, searching the crowd. Her eyes met Daniel's. She smiled. Then, in a small voice that carried further than anyone anticipated, she said, "Sir, I learned this song from my mommy." Her words were simple, clear, unpolished, but something in them caused Daniel to still. He didn't know why. Lily turned back to the keys, and she began to play. The notes were not perfect. A few hesitations, a tiny stumble in the middle, but the melody was unmistakable. It was an old lullaby, one that had been popular decades ago. The kind of song mothers hummed in kitchens, while washing dishes in the evening. The kind of song played softly on radios in living rooms filled with shag carpet and family photographs. As the melody drifted through the hall, Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He hadn't heard that song in more than 40 years. Not since he was a boy, sitting cross-legged on a linoleum floor, listening to his own mother hum while she folded laundry. She had worn a blue house dress, her hair pinned loosely at the back. She used to smile at him over her shoulder. Daniel had not thought about that memory in years. Work had a way of pushing old things aside. Deadlines, contracts, board meetings, growth projections. Somewhere along the way, lullabies had disappeared. The little girl continued playing, her shoulders relaxed, her confidence growing with each measure. The room was quiet now, employees, spouses, neighbors, all listening. Daniel felt his hand rise slowly to his mouth. He hadn't realized he was holding his breath. The melody softened near the end, and then it finished. There was a pause, not awkward, not tense, just still. Then the room erupted into gentle applause. Lily turned around, startled by the sound, then grinned wide. Her cheeks flushed pink with pride. She slid carefully off the bench. Daniel didn't realize he was moving until he found himself walking toward her. His polished shoes felt strangely heavy against the wooden floor. He stopped in front of her. Up close, she looked even smaller. Her eyes were bright blue, steady, unafraid. "Sir," she said again, as if remembering something important, "my mommy says music makes sad hearts feel better." The words landed softly, but they landed deep. Daniel cleared his throat. "Well," he said carefully, his voice lower than usual, "your mommy is very wise." Lily nodded seriously. "She plays it when she misses Grandma." That sentence, so gently offered, felt like a key turning inside a locked door. Daniel's mother had passed away 10 years earlier. He had attended the funeral, shaken hands, given a short speech, and then he had returned to work the following Monday. There had been no lullabies, no time to sit quietly with the ache. He crouched down so he was eye level with Lily. "That was beautiful," he told her. She beamed. Behind them, a small group of employees watched, some smiling, some blinking away moisture they hadn't expected. A woman approached, early 30s, soft brown hair tucked behind one ear, kind eyes. "Lily," she said gently, placing a hand on the little girl's shoulder. "You did wonderful." She looked up at Daniel with a polite smile. "I'm Emily Carter," she said. "Her mom." Daniel stood. "Daniel Whitmore," he replied automatically. Then he paused. "She reminded me of someone tonight." Emily's expression softened. "Music does that," she said. There was no sales pitch, no nervousness about speaking to the CEO, just warmth, the kind that used to be more common years ago when neighbors dropped by unannounced and coffee was always brewing. Snow continued falling outside the windows. The Christmas tree lights flickered gently beside them. Daniel found himself asking a question he hadn't planned. Would you mind if she played it again?" Emily looked surprised, then she smiled. "Lily?" she asked. The little girl's eyes lit up. She climbed back onto the bench with careful determination. This time, as she played, Daniel didn't stand behind her. He sat in one of the wooden chairs near the piano, and he let himself listen, not as a CEO, not as a host, just as a man remembering. The melody seemed steadier now, as if Lily could sense how important it had become. Daniel felt tears gather in the corners of his eyes. He did not wipe them away immediately. At 58, he had learned that strength was not the absence of emotion, it was the willingness to feel it. When the final note faded, the applause was softer this time, more reverent. Daniel rose slowly. "Emily," he said, turning to Lily's mother, "would you and Lily consider coming by the office sometime? We have a piano in the lobby. It doesn't get much use." Emily hesitated, not out of fear, but out of humility. "That would be lovely," she said finally. Daniel nodded. As the evening continued, conversations resumed, laughter returned, plates of cookies were passed around. But something inside Daniel had shifted. Later, when most guests had gone home, he stood alone by the window. Snow covered the sidewalks now, quiet, clean. He thought about how many years he had spent building success, and how few moments he had allowed himself to simply feel. He realized something gentle, something steady. We do not outgrow the need for tenderness. We do not retire from longing, and sometimes healing arrives in the form of a child's small hands on piano keys. A week later, Lily and Emily visited the corporate office. Employees gathered quietly in the marble lobby as Lily sat at the polished grand piano. Daniel stood nearby, not in front, not behind, beside. When she played, the sound echoed through the tall ceilings, and people paused. Assistants stopped typing. Managers stepped out of offices. For 3 minutes, the building felt less like a machine and more like a home. Afterward, Daniel addressed his staff. His voice was steady. "We work hard here," he said, "but we are not only workers, we are sons, daughters, parents, friends." He glanced at Lily. "Let's remember that." That winter, Daniel began leaving the office earlier, just once a week at first, then twice. He visited the community hall again. Not as a sponsor, just as a guest. Sometimes Lily played, sometimes she didn't. It didn't matter. What mattered was that something once frozen had thawed. Years later, Daniel would say that the most important lesson of his life did not come from a boardroom. It came from a 4-year-old girl in a red dress who said, "Sir, I learned this song from my mommy," and he would smile when he told it, because by then, he understood. Kindness does not announce itself with headlines. It arrives softly, like snow at dusk, like a lullaby remembered, like a child who believes that music can heal sad hearts. And if we are quiet enough and brave enough, we may find that it heals ours too,